There's this perception that a full-time role is a stable one. And my argument has always been that if you have one source of income, that's one fire away from zero income. Where when you're freelancing, you've got multiple clients. So if one goes away, it's like, okay, well, keep it on. And it's the startup cost of it that is really challenging for a lot of people because not everybody's cut out for freelance. It's challenging to get clients. It is imperative to keep them, and being able to read the room, read the environment, build those relationships and that rapport, have that sense of self is something that it does take work.
Welcome everybody to Look Both Ways. Today I'm joined by Hillary Applegate. She's the founder and CEO of Digital HQ, a social-first marketing agency working with brands everywhere from aerospace to guacamole. Hillary's story is especially compelling to me because becoming a mom did not slow her down. It only sharpened her. She built her company alongside becoming a mother, and in the process, she's redefining what ambition and balance can look like in real time. Hillary, I'm super excited you're here. Welcome.
Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Jenna.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. I know that you grew up near where I did. Tell me where you were raised and what your childhood was like.
I did. Silicon Valley kids unite over here. Yeah, I grew up in South Bay, and I always draw a lot of parallels to the newness of what Silicon Valley was in the 90s with these new companies emerging, new technology. We've talked about how our schools even had the newest Apple computers. It was public school, but it was very much ingrained in the culture of tech first. And that drew a lot of forward ambition for me, I would say. Both of my parents were entrepreneurs, so I saw firsthand what that was like. And I loved the idea of having very flexible options as I got older. I always looked at adulthood as you get the freedom to do whatever you want. So anytime I was a kid and I was experiencing frustration of having to show up at school before the sun came up or having to do 4 hours of homework, all of those things just continue to further. And this is not the right way for me, even though at that age I didn't really know how to express it. And I was very creative. I loved photography. I loved debate. I thought I was going to be a psychologist or an attorney. No, that is neither. So my mom was. That was not my career path. I was much more into debating ideas in creative ways, which is more along the lines of marketing. So when I went to school, I had gone for psychology undergrad, and I went into a study that they do for lab work. You've got to do a certain amount of lab work every semester. So I go in and I wasn't fully sure what it was that I was there to do, but they put a bunch of heart rate monitors on me, stuck me on a stage, and said, okay, now talk for 2 minutes. And there was people in the audience. It was about anxiety. It was testing fear and anxiety responses. And I was so choked up. I was so caught off guard. I was like, you people are animals. And I walked over to the registrar's office right after, and I changed my major to marketing. I was like, wow, you people are crazy. But college was that first experience of really being able to choose your own path and actually follow through with it. I loved my college experience. I loved that gave me the first taste of doing things new. And as I went through undergrad, got into business school, did all of that, I remember I picked up a job at the University of Arizona. That's where I went to school. But I picked up a role in their Office of Admissions, and it was for new students, growing new pages for social media, for your incoming classes and your existing classes and your graduation. So it was the entire life cycle of students. And that was in 2013. They didn't really care about social very much. It was like an afterthought. And I went to this meeting of all of the different marketing heads of the university. And I was like, what do you think about for trying to reach new students, Snapchat, because it's a really emerging platform? And then it's silent. And one guy across the table is, isn't that the sexting app? No, yeah, sure, it could be used for that, but it's a way that kids are connecting, and they have a huge publishing news platform that's coming out. And they were just like, no, it's too risky. It's too risky. Lo and behold, the next year they got news coverage for being one of the first universities to adopt Snapchat.
Sure.
Like, okay. Love that for you guys.
Sure.
But that's against the grain has always been a little bit of a theme in my life, from childhood to new career to then growing and starting at agency side after the university and nonprofit, went in-house at an agency, and again was met with that hesitancy around what social could do and what the power of it was.
Yeah.
And that was the time that I really had a lot of opportunities with marketing, a lot of sales jobs. People were trying to push me to get into sales roles or into recruiter roles. It's a big thing for marketing students. And I didn't want to do it. So I waited it out and got this role. And they said, hey, we're fully in expense, essentially. So I was like, that's not great for job security. Let's go hustle. And then that was the start of everything with my career.
Love that. Okay, so back up just a little bit. What did you see? So both your parents were entrepreneurs, worked for themselves. We both grew up in the South Bay, Silicon Valley, in a time, I think I'm a little bit older than you, but in a time where there's a lot of electricity, a lot of businesses booming. It's funny because before you and I connected, I didn't really think about that. But yes, we had some of the first computer labs in the country. There was a lot of tech innovation at our fingertips. I couldn't wait to escape it just because it was a lot for me. Too much traffic, too much people, too many businesses. But when we were chatting just about the electricity and the innovation and what we grew up in, I do think it imprinted us. I've been working in tech my whole career. I think it did imprint in such a positive way. That's not what I saw my parents do. My parents worked in the public sector. Your parents were both entrepreneurs. What was your dinner table conversation like? What were they in terms of schedules? What was that like energy with having two parents that worked for themselves?
Yeah, it was definitely, there was a lot of inspiration when it came to paving paths and trying new things. There was a lot of work calls during personal time.
Okay.
Had a lot of boundaries when it came to taking emergency calls on vacation, because you work for yourself and that's who's got to answer the call at the end of the day. So, but it was great in a lot of ways because I got to see just how much flexibility came into it. My dad, especially when I was growing up, he was always able to drop me off at school and he was able to pick me up. And my mom worked longer hours than he did. So it was really great to be able to see the choose your own adventure between the two and just how much you can have autonomy. And I think it was like seeing my dad being able to drop me off and pick me up from school and do all of those things in the middle of the day, that it just dawned on me that like, I didn't clock where he was going or what he was doing, but I was like, you don't have to go to school. You don't have to get ready and show up at a job until, you are ready to go to a meeting across town. So it was just a different visibility into it that I think I, even back then, had a very hard time articulating.
You and I, in our preparation for this call, talked a little bit about our contrasting stories. I took the more traditional climb the corporate ladder path before jumping off, and probably some burnout jumping off and then learning or stumbling into the situation I've got now, which is consulting in a fractional capacity. But you started off, it sounds like you'd had some agency years, but you started off formulating your work reality differently, which I think absolutely came from some of the exposure you got from your parents. I don't know. I'm perceiving that. Does that feel true? Okay. You go to college to study psychology. Is that the influence from your mom?
Partially, yeah. Definitely more so just because of the environment I think that was created by her experience, which was very pro therapy. I've had a therapist pretty much my entire life. When I was in middle school, I struggled a lot, I think, hormonally with some of the downfalls of anxiety and just struggling a lot with mental health. That gave me a lot of exposure to a variety of different therapeutic practices, like even more. I think that for me was where I thought I loved helping people. I loved understanding what goes on in your brain. And I think that there's a lot of therapists and psychologists that end up getting into these research functions because they want to understand their own origin. And I think that was definitely the case for me, that I had a lot of curiosity about how the brain worked and how people thought. But what was always missing for me specifically in that career path was that I just loved the creativity of marketing more. So I do not work with any therapists like for my professional world. Yeah. I don't work with any attorneys. I don't work with anybody from what I thought that I would. I'm like very much into the brand side of it, but psychology plays a huge portion into it. Like thinking about how people think, how people feel. I just got off a call earlier today where we're talking about the sales cycle and how people don't want to be just sat there and sold to, but they love a choose your own adventure. They like to explore. They like to ideate. There's a level of play, even when you think about B2B marketing, that it's like give that the opportunity to do so that people can make better connections and make better decisions. But that piece of it for me specifically wasn't going to end up being my calling.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's what I love about marketing also. The creativity, the ability to put yourself in somebody else's journey and figure out what exactly the right message is at the right time and how they all play together. I think my mom's also a psychologist, so there was some interest for me in that field, but there's so much psychology in marketing, and it's why I think a lot of us that have a high EQ migrate towards the field of marketing. It's just one of those disciplines that you get to wear so many different hats, and you get to be analytical and you get to be creative and you get to think about psychology. And there's such a breadth and depth to what marketers do that, I mean, it's just two marketers who are talking. We could talk about all the great sides about marketers.
Marketing podcast.
It's a marketing podcast without the critiques of CEOs and founders that sometimes get frustrated with marketers, but that's another podcast. Okay, so you go to college in Arizona, you study psychology, you switch over to marketing at some point and decide that you're really at the time when you're in college where social is starting to take off, right?
It was definitely adopted by users. It was not well adopted by brands. And yeah. I saw this article in Forbes. It was a guest contributor, which back in the day that was more hidden, I guess, like the guest contributors on Forbes. And he was writing an article about 20 things that you should not do as a 20-year-old. And I was like, great, that's me. Let me read this. And it was like number 7 on the list was social media is not a career. It's not going to be in 5 years. Don't waste your time on it. Sure. And I saw that and immediately was like, opportunity is singing down on me. If this guy can get into Forbes and severely underestimate the power of the piece of technology that is literally following people around in their office, in their pockets, something that they're on multiple times a day for hours a day at some points, sharing information, connecting with people, and ad platforms are like starting to really percolate. I think there is a missing opportunity here. So absolutely. That to me was a taste of the times that we were in, where it just wasn't really a respected industry. I think it still has a lot of negative connotations by some old guard still, even today, even though the buying power of social alone is just impeccable. So that to me was definitely an indicator that there was something there. And the career pathing of it, I didn't know if the CMO role was going to be what I ultimately ended up wanting. Because when you get into any career path, especially in college, you look down the road and you're like, where is this going to go if I climb this ladder? And that to me, at the ripe age of 22, I was like, I don't know if that's really what I want to do. It sounds cool, but I'm not entirely sure. But one of the things I did know when I was young was that I wanted flexibility and I wanted to be able to build a career on my own path. So when I was looking at my options between sales and recruiter, and this was the path that I said, there's going to be the least amount of resistance because there's not going to be that many people that have more technical experience in it than I do getting into it. So I knew that my ladder was going to be shorter as I was going down that road.
Absolutely. Not a big existing corporate ladder to climb. You just bet on the fact that social was going to be something and go somewhere, which obviously it did. I think the whole D2C evolution too was probably perfect in your timing, as well as just growing up in Silicon Valley and being tech first and having the latest and greatest at your fingertips really put you in a position to jump into this with 2 feet. Did you always know that you wanted to be a mom?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah. And it's funny because I think that it wavered as I got older. My husband and I always joke, if we had met when we were 25, we may have had kids when we were 25. Because we were just so much more eager beaver. And as we got older and we got deeper into our careers and had more financial power to go on vacations and to do things, the timeline for kids was always like the same as where I ended up. But as it was getting closer, I felt like I was getting cold feet, where I was like, man, am I ready to take that hit personally, professionally, logically, emotionally? Physically? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into racking your brain around becoming a mom before you're even pregnant. Like, it's a lot of journey for those of us who get to have that runway.
Yeah. So you met your husband in college, after college, like you had some years together before you got pregnant at least.
Yes. Post college, I met him in the corporate world. He wasn't in my corporate world. He was in my friend's corporate world. He was her manager, actually.
Perfect.
Which, funny enough, I knew so much about him before I even met him. I knew about his style. Like, he was very supportive. He saw a lot of leadership qualities in her that she hadn't seen in herself. So I was like, he sounds great. And then I met him and I was like, wait, he's cute.
Oh, that's awesome. And where were you living at that point in time when you were started in the corporate setting?
I was in Phoenix.
Okay. And you're in Texas now, correct?
Yes, I am in Austin.
Okay. And did you relocate with your family, or before, where'd your move come in?
Yeah, we had been talking for a while. I've always wanted to live in Austin. I've got family and friends in Texas, so I used to come out to Austin and Dallas every summer when I was in high school. And I loved it here. I don't know what was wrong with me because it was so hot, but I loved the culture. I loved the greenery. I loved how there was always something to do. That was something that kind of felt a little bit lackluster in the Bay Area for me. I just didn't feel like we had as much culture around like food and arts and things like that. It was a little bit harder to find. And that always just really stuck out to me about Austin was the scene and the vibes. So I always knew that I wanted to be in Austin, and in my classic planning fashion, I put it in my head. I'm going to move to Austin if I don't meet someone that I might marry by May. And then I met Eric in April, and I was like, where's...
Maybe he likes Austin.
He likes Austin. And so I told him I want to move to Austin one day. So if you're not down for that, don't pursue me. And yeah, Austin sounds great. He's from Maryland. He's never been to Austin in his life. He said, yeah, it sounds cool. And then, yeah, we were just both open to new career opportunities and making moves. And he got a job offer out in Austin. So that's what ended up bringing us out there. And that was the time, it was pre-COVID. I had been at my agency for 5 years. I had grown the department from 0 to, I think we were pacing $1 million. And I just was like, this is probably the good time for me to take the leap into doing my own thing and starting my own company. And I was thinking about it from the lens of, I know I want to be a mom eventually. And the time for me that I'm going to feel most confident in taking a risk is now. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up with career decision making and where they're going to go is you don't know what motherhood's going to do for you. You don't know what kind of result it's going to have. But I knew I wanted to give it a shot. And I knew that my risk aversity was not going to go in hand, where if I had kids, would I feel like, yeah, I'm ready to go and step out on my own? Or would that take me 10 years of whatever I was doing? So it was a junction in time that was the right time to make a move.
You're so smart because it was exactly, I think, 10 years before I got off the corporate ladder after having kids because there is, now, I mean, you have a daughter, there's a sense of needing stability once you have children that if you have a business that is existing and thriving before you have kids, I would think that you just embrace some of that flexibility because you already have some of that stability. But the idea of jumping off the corporate ladder to start my own thing once I had children was absolutely terrifying. It just wasn't,
Right?
it wasn't something that felt feasible, even though my husband does work full time. So you're just so smart, Hillary, to think about that before having kids and established your business before taking that next step. So what was that timing like? How many years into owning your own business were you when you got pregnant?
I started the business January of 2020.
Okay.
So we had two good months before COVID. And then I got pregnant in May of 2025. So that was five and a half years of runway, which was great. It was lovely. It's a daunting task to go out solo, even when you don't have kids. So I can only imagine how much harder it would get once you put a little person into the mix. Aside from the fact that the other piece of it was the path of, do I want to be a freelance individual contributor and a consultant, or do I want to build an agency and have employees and a team? And that decision, it took me a couple years to really figure out what that would look like because I had just gotten off of 5 years of my role. A big part of that was managing people and a growing team. And as a new young manager, that was incredibly difficult. I think I was scarred a little bit by how challenging it was to carry the weight of the team and like having to fire people and having to performance manage in a culture that was not, they were growing at the speed of light. Like we were growing together. So there was just a lot of responsibility that I had felt at a very young age. And I was like traumatized to try it again. I was like, do I want it? Am I a bad manager? And it turned out that once I got through, I think that first couple of years, I was like, no, this is something really special that we're building here. And I want to grow out the team. So I brought in my president, chief communications officer to extend into the earned media communication side of the business, Jacqueline Kydal Martinez, in early 2025. So she was part of a round of layoffs with her previous employer, and she posted it on LinkedIn, and I crept in Homer Simpson in the bushes.
The bushes.
I was like, hey girl, you want to come over?
I love that.
And she is a mom herself. She has a beautiful son, and she has always just been a very aspirational person for me. I just think she's brilliant. I think that she's sharp, and she has a very strong and significant point of view in an industry that has a history of standards that can sometimes be outdated. She comes with a very fresh perspective on things and thinks outside of her box. So we always worked really well together. We'd crossed over at the agency for about 6 months. And then, when she became on the market, I was like, can I tell you about what I've been doing? Because I think you might like it over here, especially as a mom.
I love that. So from what I know of Digital HQ from you, very family friendly, you have working mothers on staff. I have, ironically, exposure to one of your brands. I live in a very small city in San Luis Obispo, California. And when you and I met, you said, oh, I have Nate's on Marsh. Nate's on Marsh is a local restaurant here. I've been, a lot of my friends go. For people who haven't been, there's an equestrian vibe. But if you look at the Nate's on Marsh brand and social, you're a risk taker. We're not looking at like listicle content. We're not looking at like graphics in a B2B sense. The approach that you take to social is very human. And I wouldn't say, I don't know all of your work, but not like the highest risk, like you're posting provocative things, but you're posting really real human, emotion provoking content. What's your approach? What type of clients do you take on? What's your approach to social or to digital?
Yeah. Thank you for the fandom of Nate. I have to give Nathan all of the credit. He is a brilliant creative. He and I, as an operator of a restaurant, and he's building out his restaurant group, he is a fabulous person. We have worked together for a very long time. This is our second brand together, third time working together. He's the best. And we've got a very great rapport between, we're work colleagues first, but we have a very strong friendship. And that means there are things that have been produced that you will never see the light of day because we have said no. There are things that might get us canceled, but that's part of it too, I think, is having that strong trust between your client and your agency to really just get it. Nate doesn't even really need to say much before I can hear what's going on in his brain and pull it out. And that comes back to the structure too of how it's operated. We just brought on a content creator that's in San Luis Obispo. She goes to Cal Poly, and she is building out content to help expand the level of the brand so that it's even more owned content, deeper engagement, richer things. And some of the things and ideas that get put into the group chat are just ridiculous and outrageous. And it's my job to see through what is going to resonate and fit within the Nate's mold and what's not going to. So I think really what it comes down to is trust and being a willingness to try things out. But I cannot emphasize enough how critical it is that the client is keen. Like wherever the client is, what's going to happen with the agency. And the agency's job is to fuel that fire. He's great. And he loves moms too.
I love it. No, it's just so fun. I've been a marketer for a lot of different industries and a lot of different brands. And I think you're exactly right. It depends on who your client is and what their willingness to explore is. I think some of my favorite parts about being a marketer are those ideation sessions and or the ability. I always say marketers are pack animals because I work in startup land and I have for the last 5 or so years. And oftentimes there's one marketer. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes I bring on a contractor or two. And it is really hard to be creative if you are an only, because I think that there's so much that we marketers do in terms of just bouncing around ideas and thoughts and campaigns. And it's just such a collaborative art that where I sit, I have to rely upon agencies like yours or contractors or other people or even friends or people that I catch up with just on a personal note that we bounce around our brand ideas back and forth because
you're like, hey, can I borrow your hands to hold this product for a second?
Yeah, it's like, how are you solving this thing? Or yes, can I shoot your hands with this product? But it is
it is a lot easier with a physical product, I will say, and a B2C brand is just like immaculate. I will run circles around that all day long. The B2B brands, which are a handful of our clients as well, are a lot more challenging to be creative, and the interest in being risky is not there. They are old guard in a lot of ways. There's a software company, even a startup, is still very risk averse when it comes to content because you don't have a physical product that you can shoot. You have to produce content that is net new, animated, created. So there's a risk barrier there that I think when you have a physical product, physical space, physical experience, B2C, it's a lot easier. I'm sorry. I'm going to say that.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, definitely a lot of different flavors of what we do, but B2B is a tricky one sometimes. Okay, so let's talk about your daughter. How old is she now?
She is just over 1.
Oh my gosh, still a baby. What does your typical day look like?
Oh, goodness. Wake up at the butt crack of dawn, sometimes earlier. She is a morning bird. We wake up very early. And it's been great for me because I get to see the world and get my day started early. I think I've got 3 cups of coffee in me before 8 a.m. But yeah, we get to spend a lot of time together. My husband and I both work from home, which is really nice because we get to see her all the time. And we've got a nanny who comes 4 days a week, and she has the best relationship with her. It's so fun to watch them. And we get to pop in and out all day. So I just, on my way up to the office to do this recording, I got to see her having her pasta in her new outfit. And I'm like, you look so great. Thanks so much. Here's a kiss. And that experience of being able to see her throughout the day and still get work done is so valuable to me. I know some moms do work from home and watch the kid. And you guys are saints in another life. I don't know how you do it. Godspeed. I am so grateful for the village that enables us to have time and the career that I have, because on Fridays, I don't take meetings. I get to hang out with her. So if there is something mission critical that has to get done, a deliverable fire, I'll get it done during her nap time. But Fridays are for the girls. We go and we have lunch. We went to, there's this great Mediterranean restaurant in Austin called Abba, and they just opened up a new location at the Domain called Emma. Oh my gosh, her and I house whipped feta. And she gets her little whipped feta, she takes a bite, and she just throws her hands up with feta in her mouth just because this is the best thing I've ever eaten. And I'm like, same. It's so nice. So we have a lovely setup here that I am immensely grateful for, and that would not be possible without career flexibility or a village.
I love that. I feel like it took me, again, 10 years in to figure out a 4-day work week, to have my kids around-ish. I feel like you're so brilliant for figuring it out before your first one was born, because I can tell you the contrast between I sent my daughter to daycare when she was 12 weeks old, full-time daycare, 5 days a week from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Absolutely heart-wrenching. Absolutely heart-wrenching. And I love that that's just not your experience. The second one, I had a nanny at home and I could come and go a little bit as you did, but there's nothing that I regret more than missing some of those hours and opportunities. But I so admire your bravery to figure out what your path was as an entrepreneur early, because that isn't necessarily a path that we just put in front of young women specifically and say, would you like to work for an agency or would you like to start your own? And here's how you do it.
Yeah. And your reality is most women that do daycare. And I know for a fact it's not anyone's first choice, some people, but there's a lot of positives to daycare when it comes to socialization. And I love people loving on my kid. So I'm like, the more the merrier. Everyone can love on her. I think she's great. But I do think that it comes down to choice ultimately. And choice in work is one of the key pillars that I am constantly advocating for, because it's not just return to office and it's not just work from home. There's the in between, which is it's not going to, whatever works for one person is not necessarily going to work for the other. And I think that comes with a lot of insinuation that if I can't see you, I can't promote you. And it furthers the gap of women asking for accommodations or parents asking for accommodations means that they're going to lose out on hireability, even if their numbers are better, even if their performance is better, even if their deliverables are better. It's like out of sight, out of mind. And it's a very real factor in traditional hiring, promoting practices. But I just don't think that is the way of the future. I think that we are just going to be seeing more and more of this choice being such a benefit on the package that like you get to choose how you show up and when you show up. Our job is to make sure that the product at the end of the day that's delivered is stellar. That's all that matters. So that's what I want to see more of is people in leadership also seeing this opportunity. I think it's better than a gym membership, frankly. So I don't know what that answer is, but that's where I'm always thinking from a leadership perspective of our team, our employees, our hiring, every new client that we get, every new opportunity that we get, we also get to offer this level of flexibility and choice to our team.
I love that. And for a while, I felt like during COVID and immediately post-COVID, flexibility was in our favor, right? Everybody realized that we could get our work done remotely from home. And
It's
then there's
amazing what we can do when money's on the line, Jenna. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
exactly, right? But then I feel like there's been return to office initiatives. There's a lot of different trajectories happening at the same time, but also we're both marketers, and the freelance market for marketers has never been stronger, in my opinion, where you see, I had people I worked with agency side that have been long-term freelancers by choice and
Mm-hmm.
do whatever they're going to do, not necessarily involving parenting or not. But I think marketing specifically, we're seeing a lot of freelance momentum where people are deciding, especially I think as Gen Z gets a little bit older, they want to do it their way and not necessarily spend the 10 years in corporate that I did to hit a wall to then go, how else could I do this? So hopefully we see more people follow a path like yours, either agency side or creating their own agency or just taking a freelance path.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of desire of stability. There's this perception that a full-time role is a stable one. And my argument has always been that if you have one source of income, that's one fire away from zero income. Where when you're freelancing, you've got multiple clients. So if one goes away, it's okay. Keep it on. And it's the startup cost of it that is really challenging for a lot of people because not everybody's cut out for freelance. It's challenging to get clients. It is imperative to keep them, and being able to read the room, read the environment, build those relationships and that rapport, have that sense of self is something that it does take work. So I never want to lead people down the garden path of saying, yeah, freelance is the best thing in the world for everybody. But it is incredible for people who can self-manage well.
Yeah.
It is like 100%. I would recommend 10 out of 10 all the time. It's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah. I think the flexibility of freelance or contract work or owning your own business is just next to none. But I think it would be, I can share my personal experience of the ebbs and flows. And sometimes you lose your biggest contracts at the same time. And that was part
Generally,
of my,
you do.
yeah, it's almost like
something in the air.
you have a big life event or something that happens, or the world definitely decides when you ebb and you flow. And it seems to me like, at least in my experience owning my own business, I'm either way up or I'm way down. And it's hard to remember to have a business development approach when you're busy. And
Yep.
I think that's one of the hardest things I found, at least in what I do as a fractional CMO, is to make sure I'm selling through the next client while I'm still way too busy with my current clients, because eventually all clients will leave unless you're retained for 10 years at a time, which is my longest stretch has been 3 years. But to me, I think the ebbs and the flows are one of the downsides for me. I know we're talking about all the amazing things about owning your own business and the flexibility that you get with raising children, but are there any other downsides that you've experienced that would level out the conversation here in terms of the whipped feta Fridays?
Yeah. Oh, let's think about it. Really, honestly, it has been a lot of positive, and I'm so grateful for it. I do think, though, that to your point, and it depends on the field that you're in, but like the best fractional CMO is going to grow it to the point where they're going to need someone full time. That's the point of your job, is to make it so good that they need someone full time. And I think that there are different roles and different components that you've got to really be thoughtful on that cycle and that new business development piece. Losing a client sucks. It sucks. Firing a client also isn't fun. Like, parting ways is hard. And I think that when you are freelance, you inherently are seen by some people as like not a commitment. It's like a trial in their mind rather than this is what we're doing. So there is a risk with freelance work that always puts you front line of chopping block. However, my converse to that, because I can't just leave it there, is you also are the first to come in when things are ramping up. It's very hard to hire and fill a full-time role. So contractors are the first ones when things pick up. They're also the first ones out when things tick down. So there's inherent risk in it, and it is up to you as an individual, your family situation. Would I have gone out and done this if I didn't have my husband? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. My answer used to be no. Now, as I've gotten older, I'm like, I think I actually might have built the courage up a little bit. But it would have been a lot more difficult to do if I did not have a partner who was supportive and wonderful and was able to. I didn't ever rely on him for funding of any kind. I just relied on him for the mental runway of, if this is the worst idea I've ever had, can you buy me lunch? That was the runway, though, that I needed to get going and the momentum that I had. So I would never say to someone who is single or who is in debt or who is in more challenging situations that this is something that is easy for everybody, because it is definitely not. There's a lot of risk in it.
Yeah. What advice would you give to other women that are thinking about having children or have children and looking at your entrepreneurial path and going, ooh, she's got much more flexibility, or this looks interesting? Not to say that it's easy. We know it's not easy, but what advice would you give them in exploring if that's their correct path?
Don't marry a loser. That might be controversial. Genuinely, though, don't, because your spouse is the one family member that you get to pick. So pick wisely. I will give oodles of credit to my husband. He is the best. I love him dearly as a person, as a partner, as a father. He is just a wonderful person. And I think that choice is critical to both answers, to being a mom and choosing to be a mom. Some village is you just get lucky. You've got great friends that are close by. You've got your parents that are around and are able to help. There's a lot of that is not everybody gets. But then there's also the village that you pick and the village that you can outsource. So your nannies, your daycares, those other people that you get to rely on, your carpool, your friends, there's so much there that you can lean on and build. So I think that it's the danger of comparison, of looking at other people's lives and being like, oh my God, that looks amazing. My house this morning before our nanny got here looked like chaos. It looked like a bomb went off and there was like oatmeal on the floor and toys that get stuck in your toes all over the place. And it was chaos. And then I had to run into the office and I come back out and the house is clean. And I was just like, oh my gosh, we do not deserve you. I love you. Let me give you a hug. But that is the village that we have brought into our life, that we can afford to bring into our life. A nanny is a luxury. And I'd say that picking a partner that you can build a life with, both career-wise, emotionally, family, that is probably the biggest cheat code to joy, in my opinion.
I love it. It's so funny because we had the best nanny when my second was born. My kids are 5 years apart. And at that point, we could afford to keep him home. We had a nanny. My mom was also around and helpful. But our nanny did not clean. Definitely, like when I was hiring, it was, hey, we'd like you to clean, maybe do some shopping. We had a list. Yeah. She was so present and charismatic with the kids, but she was messy and she made more mess than she did clean up. But it was also like, she was so good with the kids that at that time I had a second college age girl that would come in and do the cleaning and the laundry and the grocery shopping. So I had to have two at that point in time.
It's fine. That's what
I want yours in retrospect. She just sounds like a gift.
Oh, I love her. I absolutely love her. I treasure her. I give her bonuses all the time. I'm just like, thank you for saving my ass.
Like forever.
I'm just like, I think treating people well and knowing their skills, and it's the same thing with management. You've got to know your skills. You've got to know what you're working with. You've got to read the room, and you've got to motivate people accordingly and bring in help when you need it. But parenting is the same thing in my experience. I'm a newer parent. I have no clue what toddlerhood's going to bring me. I'm getting glimpses of it. I love it already, but I already know I'm going to be in for a whirlwind.
Yeah. It's good that you know that, right? It just seems like you're very good at planning and accommodating what you know is coming. You're way smarter than I was in your parenting journey.
I look down the road, and that's been the same with my career, life, everything. I'm looking down the road and trying to see what's going to happen. But motherhood was not something that I could fully grasp. I never hard to. I tried to rack my brain and watch videos of moms and hear them talk about it and try to immerse myself in the experience of what it was going to be like. Like I tried to master it before and no, humbled, but I'm always open to being humbled. It's okay. We'll be good. There's peace with it. But man, I wish I could have mastered it beforehand. And that's how I feel about the entire trajectory of what's coming.
Yeah. Did your definition of success and ambition change with your daughter?
Not necessarily. It's sharpened quite a bit. I think that my identity was very closely assigned to my career before I became a mom. Especially starting your own business, man, it's crickets at first, but then people are like catching on. They're watching you do your thing. They're seeing you out there and they're like, wow, you're like really doing it. And like, I really admire you. You're like, thanks. I feel like I've got some cojones. And then you become a mom, my experience was I became a mom and my like vision of success was not as my relationship to it was not so closely tied to my identity anymore. Like, when people give praise for profession, I am like, yeah, it's so cool. I love it. But I'm not like, it's not filling my cup the same way as when my child shoves her face with whipped feta and like kicks her head back and we're hanging out on a Friday. Like that to me boosts my ego to the moon. I feel so cool. I feel so great. And it like seeing all of her milestones and like our family and like we do a family hug and we'll just come in. She's so little. She doesn't really fully get it, but like she beams when we like give a little family hug. It's just that to me says so much more about my accomplishments. I get so much more from that than I do from career. But I also, with my career, am like laser focused because I don't have time to waffle. I don't have time to sit there and look introspectively and be like, am I doing enough? I'm just going because I'm super efficient the minute I'm on and the minute I'm off, that's my time. So for the sanity of my clients, my employees, myself, I don't have time to waffle on it anymore. And there's a huge blessing in that I can't sit there and self-reflect as much because I don't have the time.
Isn't that funny? I feel the exact same happened with me, right? I went back to work. I was in a corporate setting. I had between X time and X time, drop off for daycare, pick up for daycare. And that was it. And I had the same workload, if not more. And it was how much can I get done physically in this amount of time while pumping or while trying to get a workout or trying to figure out what the rest of life looked like. But
oh, you were working out. Good for you.
I am in the fitness industry, right? It's like part of the DNA of my clients and what I do and staying active. And
it's actually so important for you. It's so good.
But yes, I do try and get activity in. Also, I feel like Hillary, at my age, it's not like I'm ancient, but the older you get, the more your body hurts if you don't move. And so there's a little bit of self-preservation in making sure that I'm moving. It's usually a walking meeting, honestly, or a podcast or something like that. But
the walking meetings, another pro in the box of freelance remote work.
Yeah.
Walking meetings.
Do you have a walking pad?
I do have a walking pad. Yeah, I had to hide it under my bed because I tripped on it and almost broke my toe. But yes, I do have a walking pad and it does get out occasionally. But Austin's beautiful this time of year up until all the oak trees started shedding like they were apocalyptic. My allergies are horrible right now, but everything else, I'm like, it's beautiful to be outside here. So
I love it.
Yeah, that's my medicine.
Would you do anything differently in the context of your career?
I don't think so. If there was anything that I ever would have done differently, it would have been spending more time in middle management, in-house brand side.
Okay.
I think that would have been very beneficial to my understanding, and it would have been really fun for me to get in there and dig in and see what it's like from that level brand side, since my brand experience was early career. But no, honestly, I don't know if that sounds bad, but I don't think so.
So I love it. And the reason I ask is because I feel like we're uncovering this perfect little playbook, right? It's spend X amount of years learning your craft and then spin off your own freelance career or your own agency career with enough runway to have some momentum before your kids hit. That sounds like a killer playbook to me. Obviously, life doesn't always work like that, but I think in retrospect, your path seems very smart and intentional.
I'm knocking on wood. It feels that way for me. Truly, it does. There's a lot of things that have worked out, and a lot of my referrals came from my early career. A lot of my referrals came from there. So I do think that there's a big hesitancy with Gen Z to do traditional careers. Give it a couple years, get in there, make those connections, build that reputation. The other thing too is I was never above the work. Like, I hustled so hard in those early years that I was taking on additional assignments. I was putting together above and beyond reporting. I was meeting with our CFO and showing him dashboards. I'm not getting this from any other department heads. And I'm like, here's our pacing. Here's what we're doing. Yeah. Here's our projections. Like, I hustled so hard to get as much exposure as possible. And there's this idea floating around right now that it's like, if it's not in your job title, don't do it. I just so disagree with that. I think it's like wear the job that you want, wear the clothes of the job that you want to be in. So if you want to be a CEO, dress like a CEO kind of thing. It's if you want to be a CEO, do the job of a CEO. If you want to be a marketer, do the job of a marketer. Put together the dashboards. Have that self-ownership on these things to do your own thing. I know this isn't a marketing podcast, but it's like that to me.
Today it is.
Even in motherhood, that has been like, it's what kind of a mom do I want to be? I have so much space between my inaction and my reaction because I've got a village. I've got a career that I'm still home and I'm still here. We're still building a connection in a lot of ways. But I look at other moms in my life and I see the like ones that are with their kids all the time who are acting up, and it's like they're blowing up. And I'm not sitting there being like, I'm better than you. I'm sitting there being like, holy shit, I have to keep my space. I've got to fill my cup because I know that could be me. I know if shit hits the fan, if that fuse is too short, if my patience is like super low, that's going to fall on me. Yep. And I know myself so well in that sense that I'm constantly trying. That's like what I do with my career. I do with my parenting as best as I can. Am I perfect? Far from it. There's a lot of things that I would love to improve, but it's like that piece of it at a minimum, I know that I can get geared up for and see those patterns and prepare as best as I possibly can.
Yeah, I love it. I always felt like being a stay-at-home mom was way harder than anything I had to juggle.
Me too.
Balancing everything is not easy, but the amount of patience that you have to be a stay-at-home mom is next level. I don't know that I could do it, to be completely honest.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think if the world fell apart, sure, I could do it. But like, would I be the best mom, me personally? No. But I've got some of my best friends are stay-at-home moms, and they are incredible. They are my Sherpas. Yeah. That's the other thing. Moms, we have our Sherpas, like our friends that we know, our friends on the internet that we can learn from and absorb as much from. That's like the other village that I think is so critical to this path that we have chosen.
Absolutely. Okay, last question. If you had to describe your journey of motherhood and career in 3 words, what would those 3 words be and why?
Who was it that just had that speech talking about the complexity of a mother's heart or something?
I don't remember.
My gosh, I gotta look it up. I thought she did a beautiful job explaining just how much goes into the weight of being a mom. And I never understood the term like your heart lives outside of your body. And even in the first couple of months, because it's still so new to me, I remember just being like looking at her and being like, I don't know you. Like there's this bill of love that people are sold with. They're like, oh my God, I saw my baby. And I just like burst into tears and I loved him so much. I was like, who are you? There was just this confusion. And as I got into it, I was just like, oh my gosh, it hit me like a brick. And there was such a insurmountable passive love that I just did not know was possible. And I like people said that before. I could not articulate it well enough. So for me, I would say the three words are everything that matters. It's everything that matters in one tiny little person. And it makes everything from your career to your family, to your friends, to your life, to your cat, everyone. It's everything that matters is that.
I love that so much. It's such a good way to put it.
What would your
Awesome.
three words be, Jenna? Has
Oh
anyone
my
ever asked?
gosh. Nobody's ever asked me that.
Okay, first time here. You've heard it here.
I've got to think about that. It's not the most eloquent way to say it, but I've always said that becoming a parent was the best thing I've ever done. And at that point in time, very different situation than yours. My husband and I were together for 3 months before we got pregnant. Very new in our careers, did not have good incomes, were not financially stable. He was still training for the Olympics. He was a decathlete and just didn't quite have the same level of career momentum or trajectory. And so I felt like on a personal level, it just like completely knocked me sideways. But I think that what you just said, everything that matters, was really like the context of why we're here and the context of what kids can do in your lives. Really, it absolutely transformed who I was as a person, which is a really hard thing to do when you're, how old was I, 28? But I think for me, it would be transformation, evolution, and iteration, just to make it three separate words. It's funny, I've not been asked that question, but I think for me, becoming a mom and building my career was just flip me upside down.
Yeah.
It's been a while now, and I think that as you're raising teenagers and as your kids are getting into double digits, like the context and the way that you think about parenting changes, because it's not the fun of a whipped feta reaction. It's I call it the checklist. It's like the things I want to make sure that my kids learn while they're independent in the world without me. What are the things that I need them to know how to do? Like I need them to be able to behave in a fine dining restaurant with their best manners and to treat everybody as if they're equal. And one of the things, as you were talking about your days working for the marketing agency, that was flashing for me is there's something that I feel like when you're young and ambitious, and even when you're just young, one of the things I try and teach my kids is you have to be kind to everybody and you have to treat every single relationship with the same amount of weight, because the people that you meet early in life, or the people that you meet that seem inconsequential, the person that's holding the door open for you, or the person that's waiting tables, or the person that is helping you at the gas station or whatever, can be such an instrumental part in anybody's journey if you treat them as such. That's one of the big checklist items for my kids, is just knowing how to behave in the world beyond just being in the nest at home. But for me, the mentality has completely shifted to how do I want to show up as a parent, to what do I need them to be able to do without me once they leave.
And that's like the forward looking vision that is so helpful, because you're looking down the road, not at your 14-year-old, you're seeing your 24-year-old. You're like, okay, The time is ticking. Let's go.
It's crazy.
It is crazy, but I think your words are beautiful. And I think that your experience of having a career 10 years into motherhood and then what it's like after is so valuable to moms that are listening to this and prospective moms that are listening to this and wondering what that path is going to look like. And I hope that at the end of it all, it's known that it's different for everybody, but the choice is always there.
Yeah, and I love, Hillary, the playbook that you've laid out. And obviously, we're marketers. Let's turn this into a playbook and everybody can live.
Yes.
Yes. But I do think that you laying forward the path that is different. You didn't climb the corporate ladder. You could have stayed agency side in somebody else's agency and made somebody else a boatload of money. You didn't.
Could have.
You made your own path. You found a way of living and working that was beneficial for you and your family. And again, like I couldn't be an entrepreneur and own my own business if I didn't have a husband that was stable and a partner chosen well. Don't marry a loser. But I love your story in that it's not traditional, but you seem like you have created a really good balance with a 1-year-old in a way where you get to live your life and experience things that people trapped in a corporate box don't get to do as well. So I'm happy for you.
Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate it. I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you, everybody, for listening to Look Both Ways. If this episode resonated, please share it, subscribe, leave a review. It'll help more women find these stories. See you next time. Thanks, Hillary.
Yay, so fun.